moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting in many different ways in different parts of the world, here in our country and in other countries. Really a beacon of hope and inspiration for people to accomplish the same type of thing, which is at least a commitment to equality for all.
This is a unique moment, I think, for the area. I think for the state. Tourism has evolved within the last 5 years, and so this really creates an opportunity for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting in many different ways in different parts of the world, here in our country and in other countries. Really a beacon of hope and inspiration for people to accomplish the same type of thing, which is at least a commitment to equality for all.
This is a unique moment, I think, for the area. I think for the state. Tourism has evolved within the last 5 years, and so this really creates an opportunity for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality.
Greetings.
Hello.
All right. How's everyone doing today?
Super
Great. How are you?
fantastic.
Great. All right, family. My name is Charles Woods III. I'm the Education Programs Manager as well as the Outreach Coordinator for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And we have a real treat in store for you all today. Today's program is called Black Lives Matter, the Power of Now. And this will be our community conversation for today. And so as for our panelists, we have Ms. Cara McClure and Mr. Eric Hall. And so I'm going to ask you all, Cara, starting with you, how did you get involved with Black Lives Matter as you introduce yourself? And then Eric, you follow up behind her, please.
Gotcha.
Good question. I was actually in Memphis, Tennessee, visiting the hotel where Martin Luther King was murdered. It was around the time when George Zimmerman was acquitted of the murder of Trayvon Martin, right? And I was upset, and we went to a restaurant to watch on TV, and then my phone rang, and it was a call from my son who was upset as well. And he basically just said, "Mom, your generation dropped the ball." And we had a very serious conversation, and I agreed with him that maybe we were kind of comfortable at the time. Things were going okay. I was young, was having fun, and I said, when I come home, we'll find something to do. I had never been involved in anything in movement work or anything like that. So I came back home and we found a protest, that first protest in December 2014 on 280. That was for someone to do a protest on 280, that was kind of bold. I liked that. And I showed up. And then there was another protest in Homewood a couple of weeks later. I went to that one. Well, it was after that protest that it was after that protest where we sat down at a table and I literally said, I think we need to organize. And that was the birth of Black Lives Matter in Birmingham.
Great. And so Eric, how'd you get involved?
So obviously, Cara McClure was already on the ground before I was. My involvement with Black Lives Matter Birmingham chapter, I was introduced to BLM by Cara McClure, who was originally a part of the very first Black Lives Matter chapter organization before it was connected to the global network that we know as Black Lives Matter Global Network. And so Cara was a part of the original organization, and then she started the actual BLM official organization under the global network of Black Lives Matter. And so I was recruited by Cara. Cara said that she saw something in me as it relates to like my community engagement, things I was doing in the community, Facebook posts that I was putting out to kind of inform the public about just different things in general as it relates to Black lives and Black humanity. And so I definitely agree with the mission, the vision, and principles of Black Lives Matter. And I also understand that we have a greater mandate. And one of our one of the leaders in the movement always say that we have a mandate to avenge the suffering of our ancestors.
Yes.
And Mary Hooks, who is one of the founders of SONG, Southerners on New Ground. And so that's my commission. I'm in this work because I believe in Black lives, I believe in Black humanity, and I believe in uplifting Black lives and making sure that Black people are protected and have access to the things that they need to have access to.
That's great. And I know those answers. We're going to go ahead and do some questions. So the first question I have is, how has Black Lives Matter been a catalyst for the global movement against racism and social justice?
So
go ahead, Eric.
So I'm just going to start off about, I think the best way to really answer that question is to let people know what Black Lives Matter is and why we exist. And so Black Lives Matter is literally an ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives aren't all the time really affirmed and uplifted. And so Black Lives Matter exists to, one, fight the systems that oppress Black lives. And also it exists to affirm the humanity and uplift Black lives, especially Black lives that are oftentimes further marginalized. That could be Black LGBTQ, Black trans people, Black disabled folk, Black immigrants. Oftentimes, those Black communities that aren't often a part of conversations. Oftentimes, they're underrepresented in many cases. So that's why Black Lives Matter exists, is to fight the systems of oppression and support of liberation for Black folk.
Carl, you want to add to that?
I think I can. When you talk about being a catalyst, Eric and I was discussing this last night, and we were just thinking about, if there wasn't a BLM, I feel like we would be lost right now. And because of BLM, we have, brought in a high awareness of some of the ills of Black communities, not just across the United States, but abroad. And so many more, we've been able to activate so many more young folks to come into the movement. More white folks are involved now. And it's just a beautiful thing. And so I'm really excited about where we are as an organization. And when you look across the state of Alabama, groups are popping up, popping off and doing what they need to do to make their area a better community.
That's great. I just want to kind of piggyback off of something you all kind of mentioned. And so this question is not one of the questions that we discussed, but I'm really curious to see how you all feel about the response that has been sustained recently with Black Lives Matter, and how many other cultures, different demographics from all over the world have gotten behind this movement. How do you all feel about the response recently? Because I know it hasn't always been like this, but the response recently to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well,
So
I would just say it feels like a win, like a small win, and we don't want to despise, small wins, but it feels like a small win when we've been at this, like I said, since 2014, and the support was real, small groups popping up, and prior to this, when there was an uprising, we would have to do everything. We would have to raise money while we were in jail, after going to jail after an action. We would have to plan the action. We would have to do all the parts, write the letters, the open letters to the elected officials. We would have to do every part of of the work. And now, with all the different groups and so many people involved, we actually get to put our heads down and focus on a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and we really get to focus and reimagine Black life across the country and across our state. Whereas before, we had to be more reactionary because there wasn't too many others doing the work.
And I definitely agree with my sister Cara on that. It's exciting to see so many different people from all spectrums, all nationalities, all races, um, joining together on the fight for Black lives and to uplift Black humanity. Um, it's really exciting to see. It gives us an opportunity to do more on the policy end, to create the change that we want to see, and uplift Black lives. And so, yeah, I definitely 100% agree with the statement that Cara made. Just to be real about it, the reason that we have this overwhelming amount of support is the fact that people are literally fighting for humanity. And to add to that, fighting a pandemic in the midst of a pandemic, has really just, COVID has shown us, it's just kind of shed a light on a lot of different issues, and people are literally tired. So it's beyond just the police brutality, police terrorism. It's all of the sufferings, all of the things that Black people have had to encounter and deal with. And it's just reached a head, and now people are at a point to where they're saying enough is enough, and we really can't not take any more, and change has to take place. And so now is the time, this movement is really about creating the change that Black lives need to see. And we're moving at a fast pace to create that change now, versus later.
That's great. And so you talked a little bit about policy. And so my next question is, we've constantly heard this phrase of defund the police, and we're hearing it everywhere. It's all over social media. It's every hashtag. But so with that statement, defund the police, what specific policy changes do y'all want to see adopted?
That's a good question, and not only, as usual, not only do we have to you know imagine public safety, but we also have to educate the public on what does that mean when we say defund the police. And so a lot of education will have to go into that. But we demand a divestment from the police and investment in Black communities. We call on localities and elected officials across the country and across Alabama to divest resources from policing to in local budgets, and reallocate those resources to healthcare, to housing and education, that our people deserve. More officers, more guns, jails, prisons are not a solution to these longstanding problems. I remember before I was in movement, I just never understood why jail was the answer to everything, and fines. And so all across our communities, for every situation there's a fine, or our communities are over surveilled, over policed, and I saw a sign the other day that says the best communities don't have more police, they have more resources. And so right now we're calling on divest from and invest in. It doesn't mean that right away we won't, to abolish, the police. That's long term. But right now, we just want the money reallocated into more deserved places. Also, police calls. Police are called to do things like um, to answer calls on mental health. Um, they are everything, and this way they will get a chance to be able to focus on protecting and serving. Is and let the folks who more money need to be put into more social organizations as well, who can handle the problem from the root cause, which is poverty. And so we just we need to really focus on that. And I'm on the task force with the Birmingham, with the city of Birmingham, with the public safety health task force. And so one of the things that I'll be focusing on is our budget and reallocating resources.
And yeah, just to kind of add to that, with that divestment piece, we have to be able to reimagine what a new world looked like. Reimagine what a new emergency response system looked like. The fact that you know we should be in a position where police shouldn't be used to provide social services. You know what I'm saying? That's not a that don't help. You know what I'm saying? We black communities have a real serious problem, and policing. We have to address the issues with police. Even if you go back to the history of how police were even started, it was never beneficial to black people in a way where it was positive. It was always to control black people, to keep black people in line and all of that. And so, just in self, the history behind it isn't right. So we have to address that. You know what I'm saying? And what we've been afraid to address in this country hasn't even addressed the issue of racism. And so when we're afraid to address the issues of racism, you already know that the systems that the founding fathers of this country put in place was literally to control, and we cannot continue to use those same systems. So yes, we have to begin to reimagine what a new world looks like, what a new emergency response system looks like. We have to be able to invest in our communities. And so when we use words such as defund the police, yes, it might seem like we're asking for a lot, but it's really not. We're asking for investment in communities. We're asking for, if we have all these different policing and we see that policing isn't working, it's obvious that we need to look at another approach. And so, whereas we have in the city of Birmingham a police department that receives probably almost nearly $500 million, and crime is still at an all-time high, not just necessarily in one sector or community, but all over Birmingham. We have a crime issue all over Birmingham. And not necessarily just in black neighborhoods, just to be clear with that. And so we have to address policing as it is. And so we definitely need a part of addressing policing means that we need to look at the underlying root causes of why people are doing what they're doing. And for black people, literally surviving has been an issue. For black people who come out of jail, who have been formerly incarcerated, who haven't necessarily been properly equipped with the necessary tools that they need to re-enter society. When you talk about recidivism and why the people keep going back into the jail system, it's because they haven't been equipped. And it's literally by design, by systemic design, that people have been literally set up to fail. And so they only turn to what they know to survive. You know what I'm saying? So the issues that we have with policing, when you driving around, let's just say I go by Smithfield housing community on a day-to-day basis, it's a common occurrence for me to see an overwhelmingly large amount of police presence in that community. It's a common occurrence for me to drive up on a police checkpoint. You know what I'm saying? So when we think about these police checkpoints, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, they say it's to deter crime, it's to look at, but all of the other things that result from a police checkpoint. People literally sometimes have to make a decision. Do I pay my house note or do I pay car insurance?
Yeah.
And what do you think gonna come first? You know what I'm saying? You have to make a decision, you know what I'm saying, where you're gonna keep a roof over your head, but you also know that you have to drive to get to work to continue to provide until you are in a position to get car insurance. And so what happens with that? If you get a ticket for not having car insurance, that leads to something else. Probable cause for them to search your vehicle, and you might have a weapon or something like that. The laws change, you know what I'm saying, and the state has failed to, in its process, to even educate people on gun laws in a way, you know what I'm saying, to where it's beneficial to where we know our rights as it relates to having a gun. And so now you have a no insurance ticket. You probably might have get a felony case for having a gun or concealed weapon in the vehicle. You know what I'm saying? And all of these things add up, and it ultimately really brings, put black people in a very bad predicament. So
It's just
those
a
are in a position, right? And so those are some of the things that we have to have conversations about. Some of the bigger issues we have to address: poverty. Poverty being the number one root issue of the problem that we have. We need to make sure our people have wages. We need to make sure our people have access to the things that they need to survive. We need to make sure that our people have access to medical care, and all of this. So, yeah, that's why Black Lives Matter exists. So we have to
Eric,
begin to imagine what a new system look like. What's up?
that was a question that popped up. Address that question. There was a gentleman who said, "Why can't we police our own communities?"
And then he said, and police the police.
Right, and so we do need to have accountability of police, and so that's definitely one of the things that BLM has been calling for. Police need accountability outside of what we've been told internal affairs is, outside of ALEA. You know what I'm saying? Law enforcement shouldn't be investigating law enforcement because we already know that there's a blue code of silence and they literally protect each other. So Black Lives Matter have been pushing for police accountability, creating a task force that's outside of um, the mayor's role of control, asking for we've been literally fighting for a committee that's organized by the people, to really have the ability to one, I ain't gonna say recommend because we don't want to recommend. We want to be in a position to where we are able to provide disciplinary actions to police officers who um, do something that they're not supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? In a way. So it needs to be, we need to have the ability to discipline, fire, or terminate if need be. And also we need to have the ability to subpoena relevant information as it relates to certain cases involved with police. And so that's definitely something that we need. So yeah, we've been asking for that. It's not nothing new. Police accountability have been a part of our platform since the beginning of BLM existence. Police accountability was even shared to Mayor Woodfin when he was at that point when he was candidate Woodfin, and he put together the Woodfin Way plan. And so ever since that time, Black Lives Matter Birmingham chapter have been pushing for police accountability. And it's our hope that we definitely get what we need to get, because our police here definitely do need to be held accountable for their actions, and how they treat the citizens of Birmingham.
Go ahead, Carl.
Also, we have to do a better job of policing ourselves too. You know what I'm saying? We got to check ourselves, and do what we need to do, as it relates to protecting our communities and protecting our people. And that's just being 100 about everything.
Go ahead, Carl.
I was just going to say, this is where our participatory budgeting is going to come in, and we're getting ready to roll out a survey so we can understand what the community want, so we can organize ourselves accordingly. But as far as community policing, this is where that reallocating funds will come in, because there are literally organizations on the ground right now who have put together a plan. I think it's called, one of the plans is Cure Violence. But those are such new things to Birmingham or Alabama, although it may have those initiatives were successful maybe in New York and other cities. This is where visionary leadership comes into play, where we have to do education, we have to submit things on the cure violence and on ways to protect our community ourselves, because or maybe it needs to be a pilot program so they can show that this program works. But if we've never done it before, it's hard for our elected officials to imagine. Sort of, when folks went to jail, you normally people normally just pay bail to get out, right? And we thought that was normal because that's what's been done for so long. You go to jail, and you're caged for a little while until you're able to pay your ransom, right? And so now, since 2017, we've done initiatives with the National Bailout, where I know we spearheaded the Black Mama Bailout, freeing Black mamas from jail, basically because they were stuck there because of their inability to pay or because they're poor. Whereas if you have the money and you get in trouble, you can pay to get out and go home, right? And so we were able as activists to reimagine where folks can go to jail and sign themselves out and come back to court and they're not stuck there because they're poor. But we have to do a better job, and we definitely been working on that since 2017 on how to help the community reimagine these things as well, so it won't sound so foreign to them when we call for it.
So you mentioned this a little bit in your last statement, and it kind of segues right into my next question. And so we know that doing this type of work and being a part of this movement, it's a heavy lift. You mentioned it a little bit earlier that that at one point you all were doing everything, and that you got to write letters to elected officials and do all of these other things to help affect policy or help affect the people that need to hear what you're trying to get across. But so my question is, who are your allies, and then how does BLM work with its allies to change the general public's hearts and minds to these issues?
We talked about that last night too. I thought a different way as far as changing hearts and minds, but you want to start it off, Eric?
Yeah, I'll just say this. Our allies, we have an overwhelmingly large support of allies. And so literally, we find allyship in organizations who share has common goals or commonalities in issues that we're fighting for. And so the issues that we're fighting for range everything from police terrorism, police reform, environmental injustice, housing issues, healthcare issues. And so we literally have a great number of organizational support and allyship, and just people who literally believe in humanity. So, we have Black folk, white folk, queer folk, trans folks. So our allyship can't necessarily be identified into certain particular groups. But as you can see with the momentum of this movement, the allyship and the support has been overwhelming. So I don't want to go into identifying just one particular organization or one particular group or one, particular persons or individuals, but just say that, we do have an overwhelmingly large amount of support, and people who are literally fighting for humanity, and particularly communities that are marginalized and oppressed. And so this movement is literally about humanity, and there are so many people who really believe in the issues and things that we're fighting for. And so that would be my response to, allyship.
Yeah. And Eric, I would add that our allyship is vast and great because we have been great allies to others. Since we started, we've been on the front lines of the fight for 15 and a union. We were on the front lines with Arise Alabama, fighting predatory lending. We have participated and still participated with the Poor People's Campaign. We were on the beginnings of Stand as One, Alabama. We've been here and supported ACLU, the NAACP. We've been in coalition with them. And then nationally, the groups that we have supported nationally, and that's why our allyship is so great and supported well. But it can be better financially. Um, Financial support to our group has not been what I thought it should be, but also the way that they help us change the hearts and minds is by educating their community. Um, we've gotten support because basically this racism is it's not ours to fix. Okay. We're in this fight because we love Black people. We love our folks. We love our community. But we understood the importance of allyship because we know we can't do this alone. We're a small group in Birmingham. We're great. We're across the country, Black Lives Matter. But this is a fight that everybody has to participate in their own way. Not everyone will want to protest. Not no one, not many wants to go to jail. I raise my hand for that. Eric will go if necessary and get in good trouble. But there's literally a lane for everyone. And so right now I see folks are in their lanes and we're coming together and putting our ideas together. And, we have a long ways to go. And so all of it can get better or be better. And so I think that our allyship is great because um, we've done great at supporting other groups.
All right. So I'm gonna rephrase this question just a little bit, but this next question is about the movement and where you all are leading individuals to. So the question is what does success look like in Black Lives Matter work to create a movement that affirms Black humanity? And so I changed it from create a movement for racial justice, because you've said several times, Eric, that this is about affirming Black humanity and people acknowledging that humanity and we getting treated like humans, like everyone else, right? Or so I rephrase it a little bit, but what does success look like in Black Lives Matter's efforts to affirm Black humanity? What does success look like?
So success for Black Lives Matter looking like Black people having access to the things that they need to have access to. And I'm just gonna be real with you in this. We have Black lives have been undervalued in so many different ways. And so we definitely have to begin to kind of have conversations and critical conversations around the value gap that exists. And so that value gap exists in economics, in the wages, as it relates in comparison to our counterparts. It exists in education, the education gaps that we have. It exists in health. It exists in there are so many different things and so many different issues that we have to fix. And so things that I'm literally fighting for, and our team is literally fighting on a day-to-day basis, is one, making sure that our schools are in a competitive state to where they can compete with other schools. Literally, by from issues dealing with like redlining and redistricting and all of that, we have literally seen a great majority of our schools close, our public schools in the Birmingham area. And literally closing these public schools have literally drained the lifeline out of a lot of our communities. And so many of our people and so many Black people have been forced to move out of our communities and move into other areas such as Fultondale, Gardendale, Trussville, Pinson, because our schools are in a competitive place to where they can compete with other districts. And so I literally want to see a reinvestment in education. I want to see an investment in proper health care and making sure that we have the health care that we need to live long, sustainable lives. Increase in wages. I tell a story all the time that, my mother, who has literally is a hard worker, who worked a great number of years before she became sick and ill, um, teaching children. She was literally a teacher. And toward her later years, she started working in child care development. Um, my mom worked really earning minimum wage most of her adult life. And so I can recall looking at a pay stub that my mom had years ago, maybe back in like the early '80s or something like that, or maybe like the late '70s. And literally at that time, minimum wage was something like $4 and some an hour. When my mom retired from her job in 2011 and 2012, somewhere in that area, minimum wage is only what, like $7.25, and I think it's around about that amount now. And so literally my mom has only received $1 increase for every 10 years that has passed out of working 30 years, and retiring and making minimum wage at $7.25. So we need to talk about, wages and all of that. Those are issues that we want to see, and that's what we're literally fighting for. That's, the systems that we're fighting against, to make sure that we are treated fairly, and we have equitable treatment. We're not talking about equality, but we're talking about equity. We want to make sure that we have what we need to survive, sustain, live, and be whole, in this place that we call America.
Now, this is a sidebar question that just arose in my own heart. But when it comes to reparations, do you think reparations is a means for us to bridge those value gaps? And it's totally sidebar.
No, I'm gonna be 100 with you. I totally think so. We cannot. Our counterparts have had over 400 years of building generational wealth, right? And so we cannot compete. We've only been free probably about what, 50, 60 years, and we still not free, just to be real about that. And so we cannot even amass the amount of wealth that they have had time to get. So yes, when you talk about, the only reason that they have the wealth that they have is off the backs of black people and off the sweat of black people. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I do that. We are definitely owed some. We definitely just need to get what's due to us and our people. Because if it had not been for Black lives, none of this, that what we know, would be in existence at this point.
It's an excellent point. You want to add anything to that question, or even the question about what does success look like for BLM and the efforts that you all have been a part of all these years?
Yeah. Success for us comes in so many forms. It could look like the work that we've done in the past with new groups popping up all across the city. More people are activated, and that's a result of a lot of the work that we've done over the past couple of years. Um, Success looks like starting the Black Mama Bailout and freeing moms from jail, and having those stories, and activating those folks so they can share their story and help free more Black moms from jail, but also to end, chipping away at mass incarceration. So it's those small wins again that I talked about. Success for Black Lives Matter could be us creating long-term campaigns and being able to focus on them until we get the big wins. But also some wins could look like future wins, where I imagine a world where my Black son, would be able to cross over into Homewood and cross over into Hoover and Vestavia, and I not worry and feel like he'll be stopped for no reason and profiled and hurt. And we just, imagine a world where Black folks can exist, where Black folks can go swimming without being asked to come out of the pool and show proof that they're at the hotel, or Black folks are able to, go to the store and buy cigarettes and play with a water gun, and just success for us is just a better quality of life for Black folks. Um, another success was we were on the front lines of the fight for 15, and we actually won. And it was taken away by 5 white men in higher places, but that was a win. And we have to figure out how to get it back. And that's one of the things that we're working on now is that I don't know if Eric want to talk about today, but there we have had so many wins that we don't even talk about. We just keep going as if it's normal, but we never stop to celebrate or talk about those wins. A win could look like getting the mural painted down by Railroad Park, Black Lives Matter down the road. We were able to do that. A win could be just so much. Eric, what's some of the other work that we done? The program that was the city of Birmingham was doing that y'all were relentless about. What was that? VRI? Why? You're not going to leave me talking about the VRI by myself.
We've definitely had some wins in targeting and pushing for serious police reform. The violence reduction initiative, a lot of people remember it. It's it's something that comes up every now and then, and they try to change the name of it and redesign it and reflip it and do this and that and the third. But we already know what it is. But we really we pushed hard to make sure, and it literally was, it took us targeting elected officials. It took us mobilizing community, took us to and doing popular political education so that community members would understand that why this wasn't right. We didn't need militarized police coming into our communities at this point in time. When they first started off with the violence reduction initiative, I was the neighborhood president for Central Pratt Neighborhood Association, and it was definitely heartbreaking for me to ride through my community and see elders literally tied to the ground, sitting on the curb by police with police over them, not able to go into their home, the houses that they pay for. You know what I'm saying? Because the police want to facilitate a warrant because they had information that guns or something was in the household or whatever the case might be. You know what I'm saying? And so the level that how they came into the community was definitely not, it wasn't warranted to that extent. And so we literally fought hard to make sure that, the violence reduction initiative don't work here in Birmingham. You know what I'm saying? And so we had some critical conversations with folk like, we need to figure out something else. You know what I'm saying? And we now at that point again where we need to have these critical conversations about we need to figure out something else because policing in Birmingham is a problem. And we need to figure out where the disconnect lies. You know what I'm saying? If it's at the head or if it's with the police department or what is it? You know what I'm saying? And so, that's why we exist. That's why we have the success that we have. And that's what success looked like for us. I just want to let people know that Black Lives Matter is going to be here for the long haul. It's not, we're not a fly-by-night movement, a fly-by-night organization. And I do want people to understand that it's a distinction between there's an organization, Black Lives Matter, but the Black Lives Matter is also a rally cry to let people know that, there's an issue, there's concerns that need to be brought to the forefront. But it also is an affirmative statement for Black people to understand that, we are important, we are valuable. And so sometimes we say that, what I'm saying? We say Black Lives Matter, but it's to really get those who really don't understand or value Black lives to understand that Black lives matter to us. And so when you look at the street paintings, Cara was definitely instrumental in getting the street painting downtown at the Railroad Park so that those people who go down in that area understand that Black lives matter. Now, we literally push to have it in other places, like in front of the federal courthouse, and that might come in the future. But those who occupy that building need to understand that Black lives matter and Black lives are valued here in Birmingham. Miles College was one of the very first HBCU to put a mural on that campus. It wasn't just to just say, Black Lives Matter, but it's just let the world know that yes, Black Lives Matter, HBCUs matter, funding matters, support matters, and so we are literally on the front lines fighting for Black lives.
Yeah. Another win too could look like in the next year or so, having a Black Lives Matter organization in every county across the state. There are groups that are okay. There are groups that are they're not named Black Lives Matter, but we support these smaller organizations across the state who are fighting to tear down these monuments. And also in the next year, we want to build Black political power across the state and have pockets of people um, where we began to put folks or create uh, groups of people who would want to work with us to put folks in office that are not just Black folks, but Black folks who work towards building Black political power on our behalf. And so we have a lot of things in the works, but the fact that we are still here is a win, because the past 4 to 5 years has been so difficult for us with having to fight white supremacy and death threats and things of that nature, and then fight not really fighting because we don't fight our own community, but having to weed through the noise every time something happens. Well, what about B on B crime, or they Black on Black crime, which we don't believe in. And so it's been very difficult. And just the mere fact that we are still here is a win.
Let me ask you this, and this is just I'll probably have a couple more questions for you. But I'm kind of curious about the tactics that are used by BLM to make the gains that you all have received throughout the duration of this movement. Because a lot of if you listen to different media outlets, or depending on where you get your news from or what the case may be, BLM has been categorized as a different kind of organization. And so I want you to guys kind of speak on, like, what are your main 3 tactics that you all utilize to gain, leverage in the movement as a whole. And I want you all to be specific, because what I'm trying to kind of get you to do is separate yourselves from where the media has portrayed Black Lives Matter and other. And, I mean, it happens to Black people all the time, but in other movements for some type of progress for Black people in this country, those movements get demonized into something that they're not. And so I just want you all to kind of speak on what are some of the tactics that you all, like your 3 major tactics that you all use to gain ground in the movement. I know that's kind of a loaded question, but that's why I kind of limited it to 3 as well. But what are the 3 main tactics that you all utilize to kind of gain ground in this movement?
So if I was just to give you three tactics that we utilize, first, education. We educate community on what their rights are. We educate community on what the issues are, why the issues exist, and then the problems. And then we offer solutions to the problems. And the education is on not just for community, but to those who have political influence, political power, and ability to create change. We also have these conversations to them about what's taking place, what's going on, what's important, and what policies need to change. After education, if we feel like this problem is still an issue, then at that point we begin to organize. We begin to organize with those who we have allyship with. We begin to organize with communities and those who find interest into the problem that we are trying to address. After we organize, and then we mobilize. And so mobilizing looks like taking to the streets, protesting. It looks like marching. It looks like writing letters, creating a letter campaign. It looks like sending massive text messages to those who are in political power. It looks like interrupting their day-to-day operations so that they can understand how pressing this problem is. It looks like creating civil unrest, right? And
Good
so,
trouble.
right, good trouble. What the Honorable John Lewis said, and so that would be the 3 steps that I would take that we use. We educate. We have the conversations that we need to have. We try to have the conversations with people who can create the change that we need to see. If we feel like that is a step that's not working, then we organize community and we build around it so that we can build a support and build a team to where, we know that we have to fight a little bit harder, right? And then we mobilize and we take to the street. So we create a campaign around whatever the issue is. And, if we need to escalate, then we escalate. Hopefully, we create enough noise and enough attention, enough traction to get those who are in position to go ahead and start changing some of the things that needs to be changed. And we understand that it's a process, and some things not going to happen overnight. But you know what I'm saying? We do look at, what those who are in political who have political influence. We look at what they're doing to create the change that we need to see. And so part of what Carr was saying in the last question, we're literally building Black political power and working to enact policies and putting people in a position to create the change that we need to see. And so that's what we do. That's how we operate. We are not an organization, and I do have this conversation with a lot of our elders because they have been kind of confused about what BLM really is, and they think that we're a hate group or a terrorist group, and that's not. We're literally just an organization that fights systemic injustice, systemic racism, and systemic oppression. And we literally go hard to make sure that Black folk have what they need in order to survive and uplift the Black race and Black humanity. So yeah,
I think it's important for us to say that we are not working toward trying to change how we are portrayed. It's not an effort that we are well, let's make sure we do this so people won't think that we're bad. That's not really a conversation that we have. We mainly just try to stay focused on the work and let our work speak for us. I don't see there's nothing in freeing Black mamas from jail so they could be with their families that says that's an evil group or that group are terrorists. Like what about that is a bad group or a hate group? You know, trying to get our own people out of poverty and fight for economic justice. What part of that makes us a terrorist group? Wanting for our people to have equal wages and fighting for to increase minimum wage and fighting to end predatory lending in our communities where we know those title loans and places like that are raping our people all across the city and on every block in certain communities. And so what about that says those people are evil? A rallying cry that's saying, we matter too. You know, what about that says evil or terrorist or a hate group? There's nothing about any of the work that we do that says that. Just fighting for our liberation, fighting for the liberation of our folks, fighting for poor folks all across the state. I know I drove across the state of Alabama taking poor and elderly people to their doctor's appointment. And their doctor's appointments were most times 30 minutes to an hour away. What about that type of work says that I'm a terrorist, or that we're a hate group? Eric literally does work to help folks in the community, feeding folks, making sure people get out to vote, making sure folks have a ride to the polls. What about that says hate group? None of it. And so we don't have to intentionally, fight to let's make sure that people see us in a great light. No, we just put our head down, stay focused on liberation, and just do the work and just let folks say what they're going to say.
And let me be the first one to say, just from me personally and my own personal family, that I thank you all for the work that you all are doing. And I think that it's monumental to take these tasks on. We all know that Black people in America have not ever been fully considered full citizens of this nation and be able to act thereof. And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you all do. And we got about 5 minutes left. And I just want to ask this last question and get you both to weigh in on it. How do you envision the future goals of Black Lives Matter? And over what time period would you hope to accomplish these goals? And you alluded to it a little bit already, but we're going to get that to hash that out just a little bit more. So what do you envision are the future goals? And then in what kind of time period would you expect to accomplish these goals?
But one of the main things is building electoral power across the state. Like that's one of the main things that, in our group, we kind of break up tasks. And me and Eric, well, both of us are sort of working on building electoral justice across the state. And so that's one of the things. The other is just fighting to have more control in our state in whatever form that takes. And what else would we say?
So I would say definitely, with Cara mentioned that she was a part of the task force with the mayor's office. And so we are looking for immediate reform into the policing practices. We definitely make sure that our police officers are trained and that they have the knowledge that's needed to address our communities. We are looking for, as we go into the budget and as the council begin to create their budget for they actually already in this year, where they do have the budget already, going. But we are making sure and making it known and very clear that funding in this new budget cycle, it needs to include our communities. Period, point blank. Our mayor ran on investing in the 99 communities. We understand that there were things that happened along his tenure during his first term. But now that Birmingham has a good enough tax base, we need to see more investment into our communities. Period. There is no moving from that. There is no diverting from that. And that looks like divestment from other things that hadn't necessarily been working for us. Like investing in and supporting communities and not necessarily taking community funds, but adding to communities and releasing some of that power that you have, what I'm saying, that the mayor holds, and giving power back to the community. The mayor he prizes himself that Birmingham is a people first city, and so we're really pushing for to make Birmingham a city that makes people first, and go by the statement that's on the walls of City Hall that this building or whatever this city council or this chamber is the people's chambers. And so we literally are working to restore power back to the people and making sure our communities are invested in. So those are things that we are looking for right now more than later. We already know that as it relates to prison reform, all those other big policies, it's going to take some time for that. That's going to be a cycle that's going to go for maybe a couple of years, but we're putting dents into it. And so those are some of the things that we're looking for. Economic justice, make sure our people got livable wages. If we can push it up to 1010 and then maybe next year kind of push it up a little higher, those are some of the wins that we're pushing for.
Eric, before we go, I think we definitely need to show gratitude and give honor to those before us and our ancestors. And we also need to lift up the fact that Breonna Taylor was murdered by police in Louisiana, and the police officers that murdered her are, still free. And to George Floyd's family, and I can't believe we didn't talk about this earlier, because one of the things we pride ourselves on is being there for families who are victimized by state sanctioned violence. And so we definitely I tell Eric all the time, I wish we would have started off with getting permission from like the foot soldiers of Birmingham and letting them know that we want to work with them. I feel so bad about, not doing that. But it's not over and we still can do a better job at that. But we are so appreciative of all of the folks who are supporting the movement, not just our organization, but the movement at large. The young folks that are breaking out in Hoover every single week and going to jail, in the fight, to get justice for EJ. We're still going to court because of our protests in Hoover, just doing a silent banner drop. I was holding a banner with a white man. The police went right past him and arrested me. And so we have those types of issues. And so, you know, success for us is, like I said, having a Black Lives Matter in every city across the state. But I think, one of the focuses now is the city of Hoover.
And I do want to say this before we close. We definitely affirm and uplift our ancestors. I want to thank the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute for its role in even inviting us to even have this conversation. Mr. Woods, we're grateful. We appreciate you. And let's dig deeper. I want to encourage you, and I even invite you all to look into that, look into something for us. Birmingham has about, if you go to its Birmingham wiki page or whatever, or if you Google lives lost by Birmingham police, it goes back as far as to the 1940s. And so, some of those people who have been killed by police in this city, deserve justice and need justice. And so maybe it's something that the Civil Rights Institute, Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and Black Lives Matter can kind of work on together to remember those lives, to create honor those lives in a way. And even if they're cold cases now, we need to see what happened to those cases because those people need justice too. And so that's some of the work that we need to do here. That's why this local chapter exists. And it's a part of course, the greater movement and a bigger conversation. But it's definitely something that I invite you all to look into. And let's see what we can work together to make sure that our people here in Birmingham have the justice that they need here.
Well, thank you, sir. And at the Institute, Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, that we will continue to do is at least be the place, the forum where we can delve deeper into those conversations and really start to get to some type of point where we can move forward and move into a progressive type of space. But I just want to say thank you to you all again. I think this was a very informative and great community conversation. One last thing I just want to ask, how can people get involved if they want to get involved with the Black Lives Matter movement? How can they do that? This is your chance to call out any websites or any other thing, hashtags or whatever people may need to be able to get involved for the next, march or organizing that you all may have planned.
Well, people can contact us on our Facebook page. There are several Black Lives Matter pages out there, but we are Black Lives Matter Birmingham with the blue check mark, and people can leave us a message there. We're doing all types of work right now with food distribution every week, making sure our folks have fresh fruits and vegetables. We're doing things right now with the census. We're texting out over 500,000 Alabamians, making sure everyone is counted and have a voice in the 2020 election. And we're doing voter registrations and absentee ballot education, and so many ways that people can get involved. You may not see us during the protest right now because there's groups doing it, and so we get to focus on some other things that we care about and that we feel are needed. And one last cry, I would love for the faith leaders of Birmingham or across Alabama to join us in this fight. It's been so hard working without our faith leaders. We love them and we want them to play a role in this with us, not them over on 15th Street and we're on 20th Street and there's some, but if we get in this fight together, it's actually going to take all of us. And so right now, if we want to win an election, if we want to fight mass incarceration, it's going to take us coalition building.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any last thoughts, Eric?
I just want to say, if those who have interest in, in joining the movement, you can find information on our Facebook page. You can connect with us as individuals on our Facebook page. Cara McClure has our own page. Of course, you can message her. You can always message me at Eric Hall on Facebook. And any other social media site is more likely going to be my first and last name at Eric Hall. And yeah, I just, encourage people to kind of join the movement. We need people to do whatever it is that you want to do. There's room for you in this space.
Yeah.
If you're an artist, there's room for you in this space. If you're a videographer, we definitely need videographers and those who can put out content. If you're a musician, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, we can make room for you in this movement work.
And August 28th, save the date for the People's Black National Convention. It's virtual and it's free, and people can register for it right now. We're going to make history. The first Black National Convention was in 1972 in Indiana, and so we're doing it and it's going to be virtual. And the way that people can register is www.blacknovember.org.
I'm sorry, I had to write that down.
www.blacknovember.org.
Blacknovember.org. All right. Well, I thank you all again. I think this was a great conversation. I wish you all the best, and you all stay safe. Make sure you wear your mask and all that good stuff. And we hope to see you all again in the future.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
You.
We're honored.
Thank you all again.